Well, I'm sure you're getting a lot of media requests these days because of what Donald Trump is doing over the weekend. He vowed, we played this yesterday on the show, to permanently terminate the funding mechanism for Social Security and Medicare if he is reelected in November. Is that something you want to run on? I mean, it's...
So I want to just say, so I'm sure your audience knows about it, but he says, he puts out all of these bogus EOs, which are really executive orders, which are really complicated. And, you know, I could see some sort of political acumen in that, right? Like the normal Donald, because he's going to get a bunch of press about basically an announcement, right? He's not doing anything, but the press are going to be like, the president says he's going to do these things. And then it seems to people like he's doing something. It's actually like one of the things that he does really well is manipulate the press, because the corporate media are, you know, generally veal penned in idiots who just eat it up with a spoon. But then every once in a while, he just does things where you're like, what? Because right after that, he said, and I plan, if reelected, to terminate the payroll tax. And everyone was like, whoa, wow, he just promised to terminate Social Security if he was reelected. That's a big deal.
Do you think most people actually know that? Because, you know, his base, or even some Republicans who are just not following things closely, they hear terminate payroll tax. Good. No more tax. They don't hear no more Social Security, no more Medicare.
Absolutely. And that's why, like, the executive order, again, political acumen, because payroll tax is very obfuscating. It's specifically, you just hear tax, like no one knows. They're like, oh, that's probably just a different word for income tax. But dedicated revenue for Social Security, or dedicated, dedicated money into Social Security, defunding Social Security. If you Google those, at least a portion of the world that's paying attention actually know what he was talking about. And seniors definitely perk up at these words. And there's a whole apparatus, my own organization being sort of centrally located in that apparatus, to make sure that everyone knows that he said that. So I want to do one thing to just bring it up to date, because he also does this thing, right? So like Donald Trump says this, he's like, I'm going to destroy Social Security. I promise I'm going to terminate it. Then his people go on TV and they basically, it's the walk back, right? And the corporate media let him get away with this every time. His people are like, sure, he said that, but we all know he didn't really mean it. So he said,
oh my God, in a therapy, because I'm a former psychotherapist, you always say, if someone says something, believe them.
Believe them. But then the best thing about Donald Trump is when he just owns all of his own minders, right? Like the people who are like, hey, boss, that's a really bad ploy. You're already, you know, plummeting with seniors. And you just said you're going to steal, you know, they're saying you're killing them with coronavirus by not doing anything. And now you're saying, if I don't kill you, I'm definitely going to impoverish you. I don't think that's going to win the votes in Florida. So they tried to clean it up. And then yesterday, in his another press conference, he looked directly into the camera and he's like, I will terminate the dedicated revenue of Social Security, the walk back, which is why the media have to stop allowing him to work them so hard. So like we're putting together a video.
Do you think he's trying to just be like, please don't elect me. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go to jail. He's like, and I will blow up Kansas City. Like, what does he have to say in order to get people to not want him anymore?
And it's always Veep, never House of Cards. That's like my one mantra that I always
love it.
Always Veep, never House of Cards. So I'm like, don't four-dimensional chess this. Somebody told him this, and I actually know through sources that it's the three stooges of the apocalypse. It's Stephen Moore, Peter Navarro, and Larry Kudlow. Those three are dedicated to getting rid of the payroll tax. And if you know who they are, and like the levels of stupidity and corruption in them, it makes perfect sense, right? Stephen Moore is like, the idiot's idiot. Larry Kudlow is, it's surprising that he was the one with the coke habit, and Kudlow and Kramer, right? Like that's the surprising thing about him. But he was a Wall Street, like baron back in the 80s, in the coke fueled 80s. So like he's looking at this as get rid of a tax on business that helps people not at all, but we can pretend it helps people, but really we're talking about a massive handout to business. And then Peter Navarro, I've never quite diagnosed his thing other than his like real militant nativism and hatred of China. But those three consistently push specifically the payroll tax on Trump, when the whole rest of his team are like, no one likes this. So he's sort of asserting his own, what he thinks of as, like he's going to go with his gut. But really, he's following the advice of these three stooges of the apocalypse who have always wanted to destroy Social Security. So that's kind of the setup of what's going on. And it is mind-boggling because it's kind of like bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if this one works out for him.
Talk about, if he actually does do this and it's not a media stunt that he is doubling, tripling down on. Can you talk about what happens if he cuts the payroll tax starting, November 7th or January 21st or whenever he's going to start this?
So basically, it's slightly complicated, but if you follow along, it's also not like that complicated. Because he can't spend money, right? As the president, he can like move stuff around by executive order. So he's only delaying or deferring the payroll contributions, FICA. It's not actually, it's the Federal Insurance Contribution Act, because they're actually payments into our wage insurance. So it's our money. And he can't just steal our money, but he can defer it. And we've seen, like, that's a question, and people could challenge him on that. But at the least, he can instruct Treasury to look into it. But by law, businesses still owe this money, right? So right as of now, all he's doing is confusing HR, and small businesses are just like, they just got punched in the face by bureaucracy, because they're still on the hook for part of the withholding for Medicare. The Social Security stuff is withheld. Deferred until January, December. It's a little bit unclear, but then they'll owe it. So it's just a huge liability later. So like no business is going to give that money to the workers, right? So but then he promises that if he gets reelected, he's going to make that permanent and just get rid of the payroll tax or the FICA contributions, which is actually what it is. And again, like we know this guy is a lawless guy, so he doesn't care about the rules. And there are ways. The president is a very powerful position, the most powerful position in the world. So like if he tries to get this done, sure, the courts and Congress, they should hold him back, but they shouldn't have allowed him to send, unmarked troops into Portland to kidnap people either. So if he does what he has promised twice now to do, Social Security is out of money in 3 or 4 years. That's what it means. It means somebody who is counting on getting their Social Security in 3 or 4 years gets nothing. It means that people who are currently on Social Security right now in 3 or 4 years, their benefits stop completely, go to zero. So that's what this guy is.
I think we need to underline that for the American people.
Zero, it's like, and he just, again, that's why his people went on TV and were like, oh, I don't think the president is smart enough to know what he's talking about. That's my favorite when they say that stuff, when they're like, yeah.
He's just kidding.
I just don't think he knows enough about the issue to, and you're like, well, he's the president. Maybe he should get briefed. But then he promised again. So what he's promising is to destroy Social Security. And it's weird because he keeps using this specific word. He keeps saying he's going to terminate Social Security. And because of it, I keep typing on social media and stuff. And so now I'm getting all these Terminator advertisements by the internet robots that are like, maybe you want a T-shirt from the Terminator movies. But he
You're
keeps
like,
saying
I would
it.
like Social Security.
Exactly. I'm like, no, I want my earned benefits. But I don't get it. It's something. He wants to do it though, because he used the same formulation last night. Again, I promise I'm gonna terminate Social Security's dedicated revenue if reelected.
So if he does get reelected, or if he steals it, or if somehow he takes it, I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation for a different day. And he does stop these things. What does society look like? Can you paint us a bit of a picture here?
I mean, it's really, it's the magnitude of what's happening. And even what he's done with the executive order, we don't fully understand the implications of it. The workers at Social Security Administration, it's really unclear what actually it looks like. And that's sort of, their MO is cause chaos. They just cause chaos. Like, look what they're doing at the post office as well, at the Postal Service. They cause chaos and then complain about the chaos, right? So it's like kneecap the mailman and then complain that the mail is late. And it just so happens
they've been doing this forever, the Republicans.
And it's sort of the whole thing. But if Social Security were to go away like that, right? Like in 4 years, which is like that in reality, right? Like who could plan now? There's for far too many people, Social Security is actually the sole source of income in retirement. And it's 90% or more. And 90% or more of a person's income is when it's their sole.
Couldn't we all just sue as a block the government?
I mean,
because isn't that the money that we earn that we
ours.
basically put?
Exactly. They'd just be stealing our money. It wouldn't be suing though. It would be pitchforks and torches. And let me just say that a lot of people.
Trump would send in Blackwater to grab us off the street. This is insane.
This one it's so profound. Like how big Social Security is mind-boggling to people who don't sort of work in it. Like the fact that everyone knows Social Security is because it touches so many people's lives. Basically every single person in this country, because you either know someone on it or you yourself are receiving it. But the people
who are paying into it and you're trusting that you're going to be okay, and there's a societal contract. I don't know. You seem far more relaxed than I thought you were going to be, which is making me feel better about what Trump is actually doing. How are you maintaining a relaxed attitude? I mean, I hear you. You're thinking it's a stunt, but he's really.
No, it's an existential threat. So like this is our take on it at Social Security Works. This is literally the biggest existential threat to the Social Security system that has ever happened. But it's also the stupidest, because usually they come at it in a more nuanced way, right? Like they try to undercut the foundation of it so the whole thing topples over, or they put, opponents of the system within the bureaucracy itself to undermine it. This is planting dynamite in it and saying, I'm going to blow it up in 4 years. In my first term, Social Security would be kaput. And I am just confident in that fight. That's what I am. It's an existential threat, but I'm like, at least they're being honest that this is what they've always wanted to do. Mm-hmm. They're just being honest about it. And now,
interesting that our lying president is actually the one who's being honest about it.
And now we're going to beat them, and we have to beat them so big that it's never a question again. We need him to lose so hard that no one ever even thinks about doing this again.
Alex, how do we forgive the people who have been voting for conservatives and right-wingers and Republicans who have been chipping away for the last 30 or more, I'll give you the decades amount that you would know, against our social safety net? How do we forgive those people? Oh, now they're going to come around? Now that, as you said, it's chipped away at the bottom, it's almost teetering. I need you to walk me through this, please.
So I don't forgive them. I do have this lesson that actually the former mayor of DC, the late Marion Barry, taught me early on in organizing for public health in Washington, DC, for health equity. Now, not everyone was with us on HIV testing and treatment and universal condom distribution in Washington, D.C., which had one of the highest HIV infection rates in the country. And we were pushing and changing policy, but it was slow going until we hit this point, and then it turned. And then DC became sort of a model, and it all happened kind of quickly. And then all these people who had fought us were now with us. And I was younger then. This is a while ago, 15 years ago. And so I had that fire. I was like, these people were the people who were saying no to me, like that specific person. And it was Marion Barry who was like, in politics, it's best not to punch a person in the face when they're walking towards you. And I've always, I think the left needs to learn that a lot. Like, it's no permanent enemies, no permanent allies, just put in a little bit more of a funny sort of metaphor. But it's like, yeah, don't trust them completely and totally, maybe, but also reward people for doing the right thing, even if it's like at the last possible moment or things like that. You know, like, don't trust them. But seniors right now, I will say from the public opinion polling, so don't trust the politicians. But when it comes to the people, what we're seeing is another, you know, I think you're seeing a once in a generation shift. You know, the last time this happened was Ronald Reagan. I think before that, LBJ, where a whole demographic is changing the way that they are generally voting from Republicans away from Republicans. So Florida is in play, for example, in the presidential. You know, that is something that I don't want to think too hard about it. What I want to do is just dive into it. We're going to be running ads on Wheel of Fortune, just as all across Florida, just with his words, terminate Social Security, terminate Social Security. And
I wonder how that's going to play out in the villages. I actually have some friends who live there, and they've got, it's like a culture war between the 5 Democrats and the rest of the Republican retirees in that spot.
I'll have to, they have their own cable system. So I'll have to just do a specific buy.
Get an ad on there.
Just for this test. And then you can tell me what they think about it.
Alex, have you seen how, have you been able to follow how right-wing news has, Fox News, their base is older people. How have even Fox News come out and said, oh, this is not good? How have the right-wing media been spinning this? How have they been handling it?
So I think that what the play was, and was to,
I know you mentioned before having the surrogates come on and be like, he's kidding. That's nothing. Oh, he's too dumb. He doesn't know.
But he then says it again. The main thing is that it's easy to ignore this part of it. And that's mainly what like Fox News and Sinclair and them are doing. Because the trap that he was trying to lay with his executive orders was he says he's going to do all this stuff that's not real, right? So he's not actually, no one's going to get actual unemployment money from his executive order. It's not real. It's not a real thing. But he says he's going to do it. People believe him. And then the trap was he wanted the Democrats to sue to stop the executive orders because they are, I think all except for the student debt one, actually unconstitutional and illegal. He doesn't have the authority to do it. But then, you know, the right wing would paint it as the Democrats are trying to stop you from getting your unemployment, when in fact the exact opposite is true, right? The Democrats passed 600 plus up unemployment in May. And so the Fox News is they obviously wrote that playbook because I think that's the way the relationship goes. They actually tell the White House what to do. So they're kind of sticking with it, you know, like the Democrats
waiting for the Democrats to sue.
And also saying like the Democrats failed in the negotiation and Donald Trump had to step in and da. But now what you're seeing is, so you have the propagandists like, you know, Sean Hannity, and they'll always be doing their thing. But a bunch of the business world press is actually like, this is a nightmare, right? Like there's none of this stuff works. And small, medium, and big businesses are going to be just absolutely confounded by what these actually mean. And then every state and municipality is like, we're going bankrupt. Like, this isn't real. You didn't actually give us any money to do the UI, and we don't have enough money to do anything right now. And, you know, he's saying that they have to spend 25% of it is coming from states, and states are like, we don't have any money. So the reality is catching up to the spin. And just like the whole thing with the fact that his plan on the coronavirus is just to let seniors die and other people, but primarily seniors, 80% of people who die, he's treating it as a PR problem, right? And the pandemic is not a PR problem, just like the economy collapsing is not a PR problem. Doesn't matter how many times Sean Hannity says, you know, Donald Trump is doing XYZ. If there's no revenue base in the states economies are going to collapse. And then the national economy collapses and the global economy collapses. That's real. So reality is catching up to the spin. And my hope is just that the Democrats come to the table with McConnell and they say, actually, we're not meeting in the middle. You're going to pass the HEROES Act that we passed in May and not a penny less. Mm-hmm. That should be their negotiating stance right now, because Donald Trump is saying he's done it. But people are realizing, like, every person who was evicted today who thinks that his eviction moratorium has some legal power is finding out as they're being thrown out of their house by parasitic landlords that, in fact, he didn't do anything on evictions, that he had no power for it. So that's how I think it's playing.
Alex Lawson from Social Security Works. Thank you for being here. Final thought on if a Biden administration comes to be, I'm sure there's still going to be a fight on Social Security for Social Security. What do you foresee under a Biden administration? So
I think Biden, to me, is a person who can rise to a challenge. And man, is the world going to be filled with challenges as to where we are right now. You know, this is a global catastrophe of the likes that we've never seen before. So the solutions have to be equal to the magnitude of the problem. And I am still hoping to find, Francis Perkins is the person behind FDR who actually created the New Deal. I know you know that, but just for everyone, I want to make sure that Joe Biden has his own Francis Perkins. Somebody who really understands. Who would that be in your estimation, other than yourself? I'd say Alex Lawson for Francis Perkins' position. We're working on making sure that Joe Biden has a Francis Perkins. I think that maybe it's multiple people, but the key is that people who understand the magnitude of the problem and the solution needed. Politically, I will also say, and I know we're final thought here. Joe Biden's campaign is hammering Donald Trump on the terminate Social Security stuff. They just launched a statewide ad in Florida of just Donald Trump golfing and then the repeated words, terminating Social Security. So the more Joe Biden's campaign is running on this as an issue to distinguish himself from Donald Trump, the easier it will be for advocates in the potential future of a Biden administration to say, look, you ran on this, you made these promises, we need to increase benefits, because that's what he's saying. I'm going to increase benefits, he's going to destroy the program. The choice is clear, and so that, I think, is a situation that is good for us, because it is very clear: destroy, increase. Alex Lawson, thank you so much for joining us. Alex is the Executive Director of Social Security Works, the convening member of the Strengthen Social Security Coalition, a coalition made of over 340 national and state organizations representing over 50 million Americans. Thank you so much for being here with us, Alex. I appreciate it. Thanks.